All right, welcome to the first thing with GameSpot and Giant Bomb on camera together.
Hello, hi.
How you doing?
I'm John Davison, apparently.
And I'm Jeff Gerstmann.
Yeah, no.
This is the lie that we've been living all these years.
See, your name was below mine. I was like, wait a minute, is that how this actually works? Do I have to become you? Now that, is this...
We didn't talk about this during the deal signing, did we?
Man, I really should have read the paperwork.
I know, you got to grow your hair out, you got to grow a beard.
I'm already on that.
Affect an English accent.
All right then.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Well done.
People with an English accent love it when Americans just go ahead and just get right to it. So I found.
Fantastic. So we made a little bit of a stir this morning.
Yeah.
With the announcement that Giant Bomb and Comic Vine would be joining us from Whiskey Media as part of the GameSpot network. That is effective as of right now. Jeff is not only in our studio, but they are moving into an area of our office as we speak.
Yeah, we brought Luchadeer over here with us, and Ryan has my Warlords machine in his truck, so we're going to be loading that in and basically just taking over some section of this building and doing whatever it is we do here with it. Yeah.
My favorite unintentional side effect so far today has been the fact that a couple of your guys have the same phone numbers as when they were here before.
Right. Yeah, so Vinny actually has like 50 voicemails from when he was here before. It's like a couple of them are from someone that he used to buy gear from. So it's someone calling up to check in going like, hey, just want to see how this music gear was working out.
Oh, awesome.
And the rest of it is all like robocalls for some non-existent person and all sorts of stuff. So we actually filmed him going through some of that stuff. I think we'll probably put it up here pretty soon.
So you guys are getting settled. You're going to start posting stuff early next week, this week?
As soon as possible. You know, it's. I think we need to kind of sit down and, you know, I need to talk to Ryan McDonald and kind of figure out, you know, where is all the stuff and you know, where do we need to go to record quick looks and, you know, how do we make sure that we can record a 3-hour podcast and you know, just kind of the logistics of that sort of stuff. We got some reviews in the works. I was about halfway through writing a Street Fighter Cross Tekken review when the deal finally started closing and all this stuff yesterday. So I still have to finish that. We'll run that. I bought a copy of Binary Domain. At one point we promised we were going to do some Binary Domain coverage, and then all hell broke loose. So we haven't been able to get around to that. So hopefully we'll be able to get around and do some of that stuff. I would say early next week at the absolute latest.
And things did all come to a head very, very quickly. I mean, so just so everyone, Jeff and I have been talking since end of last year?
December-ish, yeah. I think it was like, I knew I went into the holiday break knowing that this was advancing, that the talks were getting more serious.
And things were happening beyond us, but we had a while to get used to this idea.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden yesterday, it was like, okay, it's on.
Yeah.
Go.
And which was good for us because we packed up our office like during the week of GDC. We were
so the guys
loading
in your
stuff into
community
trucks.
noticed something was up.
Yeah, there were not a lot of videos going up on any of the sites, and you know, it ended up being a really weird time for me because I caught a cold and my dad was in the hospital for a little bit. He's out now and doing better, but it was this thing of, you know, truly everything happening at like the worst possible moment, kind of piling onto the week of GDC. So yeah, not a lot of stuff has been hitting the site lately, and yeah, as soon as we get situated here and kind of figure out where the stuff is, we will turn the faucet back on and start making it happen.
So what we wanted to do today, as promised on Jeff's live cast this morning, we want to put some of the things from the past behind us. We want to talk about what we're going to do in the future, and also, I mean, we've been reading Twitter and the forums on both of our sites religiously. There are clearly a number of questions that everybody has. There are some pretty common themes that I think we can address as part of this. But the big one that we wanted to talk about was putting the past behind us a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've never really had the opportunity. I mean, you've never had the opportunity to speak about what happened.
Legally, yeah, I was unable to talk about anything that happened when I was fired back in 2007.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of the documents I signed sort of on my way out were this non-disparagement of, you know, we're not going to talk mess about you. You don't talk mess about us. Everything will be cool.
And we want to maintain that. I mean, we don't want to dredge up any sort of. We don't open old wounds. We just want to put it behind us and and show people, that, we're very cool with this.
Here's what really happened. I guess that's the kind of the theme. And I know, like, one of I think the first time that we kind of sat down around a table and talked about things, I said, like, you realize for this to work, we're going to have to tell this story.
Yeah.
And I think both you and Simon were both just like, yeah, we will. And that's that feels good, to know that we'll be able to kind of get this stuff out here. So there's the rumors have been swirling for years. A lot of people kind of have a general sense of how they think this stuff went down, and definitely some of that stuff is 100% accurate. But it kind of blew up into this weirder, bigger thing that dragged a lot of people through the mud that are good people, and there was a lot of collateral damage through that stuff, and it'll be good to kind of just get out and talk about a lot of that stuff.
So I mean, I've only been at GameSpot for 18 months, and there's a lot of guys on the team that weren't here at the time. There are still a number of people that were here back then. So I had the benefit of looking at it from the outside. So I mean, I've been sort of.
I mean, you were working up the street at that point.
So I had my own thing at the time.
So that was during. Okay, so that was
Yeah.
during What They Play and that sort of stuff. Okay.
So I was sort of on the periphery of the games media space and seeing what was happening, and it was just like, oh man, what the hell's going on down there?
Yeah, it was.
So let's
it was
take
the
people
craziest.
back,
It's
right?
the craziest. So yeah, let's go back through and talk about the craziest thing that's ever happened to me.
Tail end of 2007, right?
Right. Yeah. That is when I was called into a room and let go. Was shortly after Thanksgiving in 2007. But the story kind of goes back further than that.
Yeah.
We had a new management team in place around here. This was, Greg Kasavin went off to EA, and some changes happened around here, and we had a lot of new managers in place that hadn't really worked with an editorial team very closely, and that led to some issues.
Yeah.
And I think the first time we kind of so working in tandem with that, we were also working on rolling out a new scoring system, which is the current scoring system on GameSpot right now. And we went from this arcane math formula,
Which goes back to like the very beginning of
'96.
GameSpot,
This was when Vince Brody and those guys launched the site. Like this was their methodology. They had this weighted scoring formula, and gameplay would count for this much of the final score, and sound would count for this much, and then there's reviewers tilt, which was designed to let reviewers say that a game was more than the sum of its parts or less than, and that was a hard concept to convey. And over time, we just found that a lot of the same numbers kept coming up because the math worked out a certain way, and I just wanted to make sure that the editors kind of had the ability to say exactly what they wanted to say about a game, including the score. So we changed it to where the editors now just pick a score from 1 to 10 at half-point intervals. It's like a 19-point scale. And that was something that we worked on through the end of 2006 into 2007. It rolled out in 2007 once the new management team was in place.
And your role at this point was, your job title was editorial director?
Editorial director, yeah.
And your responsibility was reviews primarily?
Reviews primarily, and then I was hosting on the spot and doing a fair amount of kind of the on-camera stuff for the site as well. But yeah, I mean, primarily, working on reviews with guys like Alex Navarro and Ryan Davis. Like we were kind of running this reviews team.
And as a knock-on effect of the new reviews system, there were some noticeable changes to the way people perceived GameSpot scores, right?
Exactly. The overall score the average score on GameSpot ended up kind of dropping from I think around a full point is what it ended up being at some point, and this wasn't something that was even brought to my attention until I kind of got called into a room to talk about Ratchet and Clank Future, Tools of Destruction.
This was sort of October 2007, right?
Yeah, around there. There was some concern because there had been some pushback from the publisher with regards to pulling ad money because of that review. I didn't actually write the review, but I absolutely stood by it. You know, and I kind of sat down. Sat down with the reviewer before the review ran. And
so you didn't write that one, right?
I did not write it,
Okay.
but it's you know, it was on my watch. You know,
Yep.
like every review on GameSpot, and as far as I know, this is still the case, passed through numerous hands before it went up because
does, yeah. I mean, we have a peer review process,
and,
you guys use
and we still use it, exactly. You know, on Giant Bomb, when a review is done, we forward it to the entire team. They look it over,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's for typos and things like that. But you know, sometimes there would be like, you know, this part of the review doesn't necessarily read like the score you're giving it. You should try to either, you know, adjust the score or adjust the language, whichever you know the kind of the reviewer sees fit. And that's been the review process on GameSpot for years and years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I stood by that review, but it sounded, you know, there were concerns.
Some issues came up.
Some issues
right?
came up.
And then the next one, and so the big one
Yeah.
came after that, right?
Yeah, the big one came after that, and that was Kane and Lynch Dead Men, which heck of a game. Yeah, you know, that game was disappointing. You know, it's the follow-up to Freedom Fighters, which is a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And you know, those guys are certainly capable of making fantastic games.
Yeah.
That game was not a fantastic game.
Nope.
So I said as much. And a lot of this stuff kind of came up again. I guess that what had happened was that the publisher of the game had threatened to pull advertising money. It's probably key to note that that's actually not, that happens a fair amount in this line of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all the time, but from time to time it'll come up, and the standard practice is you stand by your man, make sure there's no factual inaccuracies, and eventually it'll blow over.
The first time it ever happened to me was VMX Racing for the PlayStation 1.
Wow.
And John Epstein, one of the founders of GameSpot, who's kind of running the business side of things, kind of ran into me in the kitchen. This was back when we were still an independent company, back in 96, 97, around there. And kind of said like, so that VMX Racing game's pretty bad, huh? And I said, yeah. Okay. And that was that. So, you know, but with a team in place that wasn't experienced at dealing with these issues, it kind of became like this 3-alarm fire of just like, oh man, they're pulling money. Like this, what is this guy doing? He's, you know, this guy at the top of our organization is costing us all this money. What are we going to do about it? So, you know, I got called into, you know, fairly intense meetings where, you know, a lot of really crazy things were said at me, you know, threats and stuff about, you know, what was going to happen as a result of this review and stuff like that.
But it ultimately blew over, right?
Yeah, Kane and Lynch, you know, the review went up. You know, there were, like I said, there were some very intense conversations. And then after that, it kind of just went away. You know, things were tense, I think, around the office between that management team and kind of the senior editorial staff. But it wasn't like it was coming up every day. You know, we were kind of basically proceeding business as usual. So I was really taken by surprise when not long after Thanksgiving, like we said at the top, like I got called into a room and basically said, you're terminated, effective immediately.
And as your understanding of why that conversation happened?
It's, well, it was interesting. I think the reason that came out of that was that they felt they couldn't trust me in the role. And from my perspective, we did what an editorial team does, and we did what we were supposed to be doing. We reviewed games, we instructed people about the quality of games, and were completely honest. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like there was some big editorial conspiracy. Like there wasn't anything shady happening inside of GameSpot editorial. It was this management team buckled basically when faced with you know, having a lot of ad dollars walk out the door.
And then you left at this was the very end of 2007.
Yeah.
And there was this sort of the whole storm behind you. And because you couldn't talk about anything at the time.
Right, yeah, and it took about a day, and then I think Penny Arcade was the first one. I still don't know who actually tipped them off to this stuff happening. Someone internally had to have said it. And they ran their comic strip, and then from there it was just kind of off to the races, and it was a whirlwind. It was the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. It was like my phone ringing off the hook. My phone number was listed. I think it still is, but I don't actually pick it up. just phone ring off the hook. My parents were getting phone calls from like Norwegian newspapers at 4 in the morning and stuff. Like everyone wanted some piece of this story, and the narrative, like the information that had gotten out there had become, oh, GameSpot's filthy, GameSpot's dirty, like, and one of the reporters that I did decide to talk to, all they wanted to hear was like, I know you can't say anything, but just point me at another review, and then I can kind of use that to dig it up. And I couldn't, and I assumed that person, that person never ran a story because there was no meat or whatever to it.
Because you've been at GameSpot since pretty much the very beginning, right?
Yeah, I started in October '96.
So and the foundation of what made it what it was you stick to your guns editorially, right?
Yes, editorial integrity was the thing that we kind of hung our hat on for years and years, and it was crazy to see that all that stuff had been undone by just like a few kind of simple mistakes from people who just didn't really get a clear sense of what it was that we did for a living.
So then, and the narrative that I still see it from time to time, and I think this is why we wanted to have this conversation.
I saw it come up on the site yesterday.
Yeah, things happen where people say, oh, Jeff was fired because of the Kane and Lynch review.
Yeah.
Like it was, you wrote the review and then you were out the next day.
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
did not happen like that.
It didn't quite happen like that. I understand why people would say that, and I think that is not necessarily an untrue statement, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part through all this, is kind of being in a position where I couldn't really say anything at all, was watching. Like I said, there was all that collateral damage. It's like there are people, people at GameSpot that I worked with for over a decade at that point. I'd been there 11 years, and there were guys like Ryan McDonald who had been there the entire time, and guys like Justin Calvert, and kind of newer guys like Kevin Van Ord. And it's just like a really good group of people, and I missed being able to come in and work with them every day. Like that was.
And they bore the brunt of the fallout.
They got a raw deal, and the people that were, I guess, ultimately responsible, are no longer with the company. But the people that were kind of left behind had to go through a lot of really bad stuff.
Yeah.
And the developers of Kane and Lynch, IO Interactive, those guys, they just put out a game. Like I ran into them not too long after all this happened, and or a couple of the guys that worked on the game. They said, "Yeah, the game wasn't very good." And I said, "You should call up my old boss and tell him that." And they kind of had a laugh about it, but they got dragged through a bunch of really crazy stuff, and it was unfair to a lot of people on that side, and it's a shame. But exactly. I'm hoping that we can get this stuff out here and just kind of put it to bed and move on. Like, there's no problem at GameSpot editorially. I mean, look at it this way. If there was, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I had multiple chances over the course of the last few months of you and I talking, and kind of, as the lawyers got closer to doing this deal. Before we even started talking, our business guy came to me and said, would you be okay if we were to speak to the people at GameSpot?
Yep.
And I think they expected I would be like, hell no, come on. But I was like, absolutely. Let's talk to everybody, and let's see, where's gonna, which place is gonna be a good place to call home. And in talking to you and talking to Simon and kind of seeing, who's over here and what's going on, it was clear that, you guys still understand video games and how to run video game websites, and that was something that we really need.
Right.
So, I mean, I really think that this is going to be the best thing for us, and I understand why the folks at home would be a little wary to kind of come along on the ride for us, just based on all the rumors and years of stuff. But we wouldn't be here otherwise.
So you guys started Giant Bomb a few months after this went. So this went down the end of 2007.
Yeah, and
so I launched a blog, right?
Yeah, I went and registered just a personal blog and started updating stuff there. And at one point, Alex smuggled me out an Xbox debug from the office, and I was able to play some stuff, and just kind of keep messing with games and kind of finding my way. Yeah. But it wasn't too long after that that Ryan Davis kind of hooked me up with Dave Snyder, who was here, who had been here before. He had since left the company, but he was here working on MP3.com and TV.com and some of that stuff. And he was working with Shelby Bonney, who was one of the founders of the company. And we kind of we talked, we had it out, and they all those people used to work here, so it was a lot of like kind of sharing old war stories and kind of going through the past, and it felt right to be working with that crew. Yeah. So very quickly, I had like 2 or 3 offers that seemed serious and interesting, and that one very quickly became like this is the one that feels right. We're going to be able to do something really cool. They've got amazing technology and great ideas about how to build sites. So we kind of went from there, and I think it ended up being like March 08 that we launched just like a WordPress blog or something like that, just to have a centralized place to talk about stuff. And then it was July that the full site with the wiki and all that stuff rolled out. Yeah. And
And you very quickly built a very strong relationship with your audience. And it was integral to the part of the site and how it was formed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were a lot of people that were kind of, following us from here to there that felt like that they had been spurned by GameSpot and came over to Giant Bomb. We had a lot of people the first couple of weeks that were like, yeah, they banned me, so I'm here. Right. Screw those guys. I was like, oh, well, thanks, cool, all right, okay, no, come on in, let's do this. Yeah. But it's the audience has been fantastic. Like the crew of people that we've attracted to the site. There's just a ton of great people doing just like tons of great work, and they built up the wiki, and it's like just it's great to have those people out there and know that we have their back and they have ours.
So, I mean, they've had, 6 hours and change to get used to the idea? Yeah. How's the Giant Bomb audience responded so far? And is there stuff that we should talk about here for their benefit?
I think that, there have been a handful of questions, some of which we've been answering. I know Dave's been answering all kinds of questions and stuff, but I think, some people are concerned about, what it means for their premium memberships, and we have a bit up on the site that'll talk about that sort of stuff. And people having questions like, are we going to merge the 2 sites? Which no, that's not the goal here. We're not folding back into GameSpot. We're not going to start posting our stuff there. This is very much about Giant Bomb becoming a better version of Giant Bomb, and we'll be able to kind of work with the big crazy fakes. I don't know if you people at home, this is all green. That the on the spot sign doesn't really exist. I don't mean to freak you out, but it's like none of this. This is a weird. This room wasn't here when I was here. It's ridiculous. So we'll be able to do dumb stuff with this space. It's a big open office that we can run around and get into all kinds of trouble, and basically keep doing what we're doing, and then hitting you up to make sure that we're getting what we need to make it even bigger, even weirder. And that we're able to kind of stay out there and keep doing cool stuff for everyone, our premium members, everyone that's just a regular member, like across the board. We want to make a better website, and I think that what we're doing here today is the first step in that process.
So there were a few, I noticed, I mean, in our community where there were people that love Giant Bomb and GameSpot, people on Twitter, there were a few themes that I think we should hit here of people that had questions. One is, are you changing anything about the content?
No.
And I mean, we saw very early on that there was an opportunity for, much as they do already, Giant Bomb and GameSpot to coexist. We tackle things very differently between the 2 sites. Yeah.
I mean, we've got a different approach. I mean, we've put more effort into putting up long videos of games and kind of, instead of kind of doing the traditional preview stuff, like saving a lot of that for the podcast and saving a lot of that for other mediums and getting stuff out there in different ways. And of course we got Patrick doing news, and I think over time we'll see. I think it'll be one of those things where there will be cases where it makes sense. I think the thing I said this morning is it'd be great if we could have Kevin come over because Vinny's the only person who loves a game like Dark Souls. Yep. So just to give him someone to bounce off of about that instead of Vinny just talking at us and us just going like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I think that'll go a long way. But baby steps. Yep. The key first thing is we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and the content's not going to change in the way that they are intending in that question. It's not. We're not watering it down. We're not homogenizing it. We're not trying to make our stuff like GameSpot stuff and vice versa.
Right. But I think one thing that you were able to go and try something completely new that I think a lot of the games media is learning from is something that we talked about on GameSpot a little while ago, which is this notion of just shoveling the commodity content in front of people.
Right.
The days of that are gone, and we need to be applying a lot more thought to content, and opportunities come up, and there are some things where we're going to be like, look, we don't think our audience is necessarily that interested, but with this being two discrete audiences, we can be like, okay, well, this is maybe a Giant Bomb thing, or this is a GameSpot thing. We shouldn't also forget that as part of this, Comic Vine is now part of our group too.
Yes, definitely.
And the crossover with comic books and Comic-Con as an event is becoming a bigger and bigger deal.
I know, just have a huge booth at Comic-Con and stuff. So yeah, Tony and Sarah will be able to get down there and get just better access to all that stuff. I think that'll be really cool for them.
Yeah. Another thing I was asked was whether I was going to continue to let you swear, which I thought this was hilarious, that somehow thought that a British person would somehow be the cursing cop.
Right, yeah. You're gonna be
I'm being very careful not to swear right now.
Yeah, exactly. We're like I said, we're not looking to make changes to our content and the way we present it. Like the thing I said this morning, we cover M-rated games.
Yep.
There are games and there's footage that we're putting up on the site that is far dirtier than just about anything that we've said some pretty messed up stuff. All right, so we're up there. M-rated games exist and they're full of cursing. Sometimes we can be full of cursing, and that's going to continue for better or for worse, I guess. Right.
Yeah. Anything else that your guys have been asking specifically?
Gosh, let's see. Nothing off the top of my head. I know that it was a lot of people kind of wondering how the subscription stuff's going to roll over. Like, do they need to do anything? The answer is no. Basically, if you read the fact that we have up on the site about memberships, you'll see everything's going to stay the same until about April 15th, when we'll be kind of splitting the database between Giant Bomb and Comic Vine, and then the rest of the sites that formed the Whiskey Media family of sites. They've gone on to do some pretty cool stuff on their side of this. And your login and password will still work on both sites, but after that point, if you were to change your password on one, it wouldn't change on the other because we'll be split.
Yeah.
Premium members, the billing side of stuff will move over to Giant Bomb and Comic Vine and that sort of stuff. But there's text on the site that you can find, and if you have any more questions, I mean, this is just the beginning. Like we'll be available. We want to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered in a satisfactory way.
I think that's the important part. I mean, as well as wanting to acknowledge to everybody that this is part of our past, we can't sort of gloss over it.
Yeah.
We wanted to start.
Glossing over it is what got people into this position in the first place.
So we wanted to be as transparent as possible on day one, and this is literally day one.
Yeah.
And speak to everyone about it.
And transparent as possible on day 2 and beyond.
Yeah. This isn't an isolated incident. This is. We'll be doing a lot. I mean, you guys. I mean, there'll be the Bombcast next week.
That's a lot of how we've kind of treated our approach to game coverage, is kind of just letting people in and letting them see it. Like at times, it almost becomes like a bit of a reality show, and we're not going to stop that. And our reality just got a whole lot crazier. So if you stick around and watch, I don't know, man, it'd be crazy.
And there's stuff coming down the pipe that we're going to be able to work on together. PAX is only a few weeks away.
Right. Yes. Yeah,
you guys are there, right? You're doing.
We will be at PAX. We are judging a rock band competition on Thursday night, and then I believe our panel is on Saturday night.
Yeah.
So we'll be there, and come up, say hi, and if you've got any lingering questions at that point, we'll take them totally.
Yeah. We'll have a bunch of guys there as well.
Yeah, Danny O'Dwyer is going to be there.
Danny's going to do a Escape from Mount Stupid live.
Cool.
And there'll be a bunch of us there, and we'll be there together. So if people want to come find us at PAX, we can chat there.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, it's into E3 and all kinds of wild stuff.
Yeah, I got to warn you though. As soon as we have our first E3 meeting, I'm going to be saying where can we rent out a bar, because we need some kind of off-site location. Look, we need to do 5-hour podcasts, point blank.
Fine.
We need a place where we can do that, and to get the developers talking the way we like them to talk,
they need drink.
They need a drink.
They do.
So we'll have to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for today.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll be on Twitter. We'll be in the community.
I've got Form Spring, all kinds of.
Yeah.
I'm out there. John's out there. Ask us stuff.
Fantastic. Well, pleasure to have you here.
Looking forward to the future.
Thank you very much.
All right, man.